Hey everyone, welcome to week 3. I hope you learned a lot from the last session about the nervous system. I'm curious as to if anything came up this week that reminded you of what you learned in session. How did your nervous system respond during the week? Did you notice more activation at work or during stressful times? I'm super curious and would love to hear anything that came up from last week in the chat, or sending me a message or an email just telling me about how you integrated the material from last week. I didn't give you homework last week because it was a lot, and I really wanted you to just experience the information and allow it to subconsciously remind you when you are activated this week. Maybe it reminded you of, oh my gosh, I noticed that I'm tense in this situation, and all of a sudden I lose sight of everything that's happening and I'm just focusing on one specific detail of the event. So I would love to hear how that information integrated into your week last week, and we're going to build upon it today with our week 3 session. So I'm going to share my screen and we are going to get started here. So week 3 is all about individual ascension. I'm excited to continue this topic of the nervous system and how it really interferes with everything that we do in our adult relationships. So let's get started with this material. Individual ascension. The objectives of this specific lesson are to understand personal evolution, to discover life's challenges as an opportunity for personal learning and growth, and to recognize that your journey is life's way of helping you to understand yourself. Everything that you experience in your life is a reflection of your own internal thoughts and beliefs. So, this again goes back to the nervous system. We talked about how the nervous system learns different things that you go through. It's always learning, am I safe or not? And if it decides it's not safe, it will take a snapshot of that instance or that experience and store it away so that if you experience something that's similar in the future, your nervous system will indicate or alert you, hey, we've been here before. We know how to respond because we can predict the outcome. But oftentimes, those habitual responses to life need an upgrade. They need you to rewire the pathway because they're no longer fitting the demands of your current life situation. So those are the 3 objectives that we'll just keep in mind as we make our way through individual ascension. This picture also, this is what we covered at the very first lecture. In order to really experience deeper intimacy and connection, you have to start with understanding yourself. As you understand yourself, as you learn how to water your own mind garden, you really increase the capacity for knowing and understanding another person. So, the beginning, I'll move myself out of the way here so you can see this photo. Everything started at childhood. So from ages 0 to 7, when you're this little kid in this picture, you're in what's called theta brainwave state, more so during this time than at any other time in your life. Theta brainwave state is a trance state. And in a trance state, you're simply just downloading beliefs, habits, coping ways of viewing the world from those early attachment figures. You also develop your attachment style based on how your parents responded to you during stressful situations. And you also learned how to love through modeling behaviors that your parents were showing you about how they related to each other, how they responded to you during times of stress, or just in general, showing you love. And then you also learned how they coped with various stressful situations. So you're constantly taking in this information, building models of the world, adopting different lenses that you're looking at the world through. And these heavily impact our experience as an adult, especially in terms of a relationship. While you're also downloading all these models of the world and how to relate to people and how to be safe in your environment, your nervous system's learning all this stuff to keep you safe and alive. Also, at a spiritual level, you're here to with a specific gift. You're here to explore the things that you're naturally drawn towards. So while you're trying to go in your own direction, develop your own skills, or follow your own path, you're also heavily influenced by your parents' path. This is how evolution happens. We are just downloading these programs that we take from our attachment figures so that we can survive and evolve throughout our lifetime and continue our species. But at the same time, you have this animalistic, evolution based human driver, and you also have a driver to find your purpose and your mission in life. So these things often clash because sometimes those programs are not in alignment with where and what you want to do with your life. So this causes a lot of internal conflict. So while you're learning how to survive this environment, you're also exploring this creative side, your innate gifts, your what you're drawn towards. So they can cause a lot of internal conflict as they don't continue to be aligned as we evolve and grow. So this picture is the mind garden. When you are a little kid, you just come out of your mom's womb. Your parents are planting seeds into your mind to help you be best prepared for how they've learned how to navigate life. So in each little seedling that they plant are beliefs, habits, routines, love, coping, expectations, etc. that they plant in your mind garden. They say, yes, I'm going to plant all the things that I know about the world into your mind garden so that you can have the most successful life that you can. And so, with the best of intentions, these seedlings grow and they're being nurtured by your environment. But again, sometimes those plants are maybe not what you would have planted if you were an adult looking back. Maybe instead of carrots in your garden, you would have wanted zucchinis, or maybe there's some weeds that are growing. But just know that initially, when you are growing up, your parents are doing the best they can to fill your garden with what they know. Another thing I'd like to say about this is that traditional schooling or ways that we're educated don't really teach us how to reprogram ourselves or how to see that maybe a habit and a belief is not necessarily in alignment or up to date. So we need to be able to pull the weed out, pull the plant out, and instead put something in its place that feels more supportive of the life that you want to live. This is how your brain is programmed. So, with all those things in mind that we just mentioned about the mind garden, you also create this neuro tag or this neuro signature where you say, okay, I know that in order to get love, one, it moves to I have to overachieve, two, which means that I get attention from my parents, three, and then you get love, four. So there's this very specific way that your brain is organizing experiences that is specifically personalized to you. If you're in a family and you have multiple kids, they all have different neurotags of how they're experiencing the world that creates these ingrained patterns that then go on to influence behavior as an adult. So this photo is just to show that the way that things are programmed are pretty crazy. You create this like matrix in your mind, and it's a signature of each event, each emotional experience that you have so that your brain can remember these memories and help you to continue to be prepared for life as you evolve. So, adult inner conflict sometimes look like this. We mentioned earlier that your parents planted in the place of the seedlings everything that they thought would help you to be best prepared for life. But if they wanted you to be a doctor and you wanted to be an artist, the stuff that they told you about how to interact with the world, what beliefs you need to have in order to be in alignment with what they want for you, sometimes can turn into a prickly cactus for you. You're like, that doesn't help me to believe that I'm not worthy unless I do this. Or maybe your habit is you self sabotage because when you're under stress, you haven't learned proper coping mechanisms. So you start to self sabotage, which looks like this tumbleweed. Or maybe there's things that are overgrown because you don't even know how to tend to the different things, the different beliefs or expectations or ways of showing love. You don't know how to tend to your mind garden. So things are just becoming internally chaotic. They're becoming stressful. You notice that there's a lot of competing parts of you. You're like, I want this, but I'm here and I don't know how to get there. And so instead, I'm just going to do nothing. Or I'm just repeating the same thing over and over again. And things are just so chaotic internally that I'm going to develop anxiety or depression or shutdown or overwhelm. These are the states in your nervous system that we talked about in the last session, where you get into states of fight or flight, for you're more hypersensitive to fight or flight, or maybe you get into overwhelm state when these things in your mind, in your nervous system, start to become out of control or chaotic. So when we experience our mind garden and just a self reflection, like, how clear is my mind garden, knowing all these things? Have I taken time to understand my belief system or my habits or routines? Would I say that my habits are up to date or of my highest satisfaction in terms of how I'm going to achieve my life goals or my life passions? And if you say maybe they could use some work, you can see that the programming is no longer compatible for the demands of the adult environment. So you have this lofty goal, I want to make $1 million, but you still have habits of not being able to take care of yourself on a day-to-day basis. Maybe you're not going to the gym, or you have poor habits that aren't in alignment with being able to achieve the goal of making $1 million. Or your beliefs are, yeah, I want $1 million, but I'm always going to be broke. So having those two different belief systems, I want this, but this is where I'm at, you'll never meet that goal, because there needs to be an upgrade in your belief system in order to be able to achieve the outcome of making $1 million, having a super happy relationship, X, Y, and Z. So this is your mind garden. You can do a quick inventory. If this was my garden, how many weeds would be in there? How many plants are in there that I don't want? How many things do I tell myself that just aren't helpful? So, good little self check in exercise to do here, good mental visualization. So, just like you update your iPhone or you would till the soil in your garden every single year, you have to download and reinstall new programs all the time. I mean, how many times does your iPhone or your Android tell you, hey, there's a new update, hey, there's a new update, hey, there's a new software update? And so you're constantly doing that. And by doing that, you're staying up to date with the latest technology, the fastest processing systems. So many of us are still operating on like an iPhone 2.0, right? There's lots of things that need upgrading, and because we haven't continually upgraded them, you see that there's glitches, you see that you are running into the same problem over and over again. So we are very much like an iPhone or an overgrown garden. This is a good self reflection prompt. So, a good idea to pause the video and just reflect on what problems in my life seem to keep repeating. So, just on a piece of paper, write down like what problems keep coming up, what sort of behaviors keep coming up, what conversations do I have with my partner over and over and over again that keep repeating. These are the indicators of software programming that needs to be upgraded. So, pause this video and then continue on with the lesson after you write down a couple of problems that keep repeating. Your partner, your relationship is the greatest teacher that you can ever have in this university of life that we get to experience, because are going to reflect the parts of you that are in need of an upgrade, because they're the most intimate person in your life. They're going to reflect things that, if they cause you to experience a negative emotion, they're reflecting back a part of you that needs to be upgraded. So in this way, again with the nervous system talk, in this way they can almost become this cheetah here. They are activating your system by telling you something that they know is going to make you mad, causes you to have an emotional reaction. And in terms of your personal evolution or your personal ascension, that's an invitation for a lesson to be learned here. But again, we often miss the insight, or receive the tools, the skills, and the knowledge to be able to say, oh, so instead of just being reactive towards my partner or the situation that's causing me to be angry, I'm going to see it as a lesson in disguise and be curious about what it's showing me about myself. So, what did we learn so far? Personal evolution is taking responsibility for how you show up in life. So, it's not your partner that is the cause of your fight or flight response. It's what they're reflecting for you. And so, your responsibility in this personal evolution journey is to say, what is happening here that's triggering me to experience this? And how do I want to look at it moving forward so that I can integrate this lesson and continue on my path towards evolution? Life's challenges or repeating patterns are an opportunity for growth. So you're seeing them as an opportunity for growth, any sort of conflict, understanding that whatever your partner is triggering you is something unhealed that is surfacing. So the more angry that you get, the more there is to be curious about what this instance is representing for me. This one's a pretty tricky concept, but if you notice that the more you're triggered, the more that there's something about what is going on between you guys that is reflecting back to you something about yourself. One helpful way that you can practice this is see if after the argument you can hover above the situation, looking down on yourself, and see if you can summarize what the perspective of your partner, the perspective of you, and see if there's something in here that you can recognize is a pattern for something that you've been experiencing in your life. Moving through old wounding will, with more awareness, is how you upgrade or pull the weeds out of that garden. So the more you can say, oh, they're triggering me because I already feel like I'm overexerted in my life and they're not appreciating me enough. Okay. So if that's something that you resonate with, like I do all these things for them and they don't seem to appreciate it. So there is the storyline that you're telling yourself. And maybe one of the patterns is, am I communicating my needs appropriately? Am I overgiving without having set boundaries? So if you can summarize the situation and maybe see how you're contributing to the conflict, you'll see that, oh, I'm just doing a really poor job of creating boundaries. How do I create more boundaries? And that gives you indication of where you can start to learn and integrate and move forward or upgrade in this mind garden. So, planting new seeds requires awareness and intention because the awareness and intention is going to help you to discover how you till the soil of your mind garden, plant new ideas. So, maybe instead of I don't have boundaries, you plant the seed in the soil that says, I am going to communicate with love what I need to my partner in order to increase communication and understanding between both of us. So you're planning new ideas. You're making it a habit of noticing when you want to tell your partner that you have a boundary. Hey, this is not okay for me. Can we do this instead? Or a belief. I have the ability to speak up for myself and communicate my needs because I matter. So these are things that you can start to look at and plant in place so that your mind garden is more aligned with where you're headed in life. Now that we've had some good practice on knowing that you're actually the farmer, you're the person that is in charge of tilling the soil of your own mind, getting rid of any of the weeds, pulling out any of the plants that no longer serve you or where you're going, and planting in its place new routines, expectations for yourself, coping mechanisms, ways of showing love, beliefs, and habits that are going to be fruitful for the type of life that you want to live. Key points of this talk: you are here to learn more about yourself. You've been taught many things about love that may not be fully true for you in your adult life. Relationships help us to see where we might need to evolve our beliefs. The triggers in relationships are the lessons. Integrating the triggers are how we experience a mind upgrade or a software upgrade. So, your homework this week is to draw the garden that you inherited as a child. So, you get to draw. How did you learn about love from your parents? So, maybe writing down different ways that they loved each other in terms of a plant that's in your garden. How did your parents show you how to deal with conflict? You can also add, how did you learn about love? How did your parents show you love? So you can put how they dealt with conflict and how they showed each other love, how they showed you love in your first garden. And then your second garden is to start to determine what sort of garden that you want for yourself to be in alignment with what you see for your life. So, what would you like to improve about the way that you love? What are some things that you would like to do in order to improve your relationship or improve the way that you show up in love? And the second one is, how would you like to deal with conflict in a healthier way? This is taking radical responsibility for how you deal with conflict. Maybe you'd like to work on communication. So you're just planting some seeds of intention into your new mind garden so that you can start to work on ways to make those things sprout and continue to nurture them. So again, they're more in alignment with this new upgraded version of you. Great session today. I know it was nice and short. I just wanted this to be a really tangible introduction to individual ascension because it is, again, just like the nervous system, not something that you hear every day. So if this resonated with you, I wanted it to be nice and short so that you can rewatch it and really digest the information and get super familiar and comfortable knowing what your mind garden already is filled with and where we're headed to go in the future. So I will see you next week for module 4. Have a great day. Have a great evening. I'll see you then.